All right, so today we're going to dig into something that I think a lot of people have been wondering about,
What?
Volkswagen. For decades, Das Auto, right?
Right.
Like they weren't just a car
All
company.
right.
They were the car company for huge swaths of the world.
Yeah.
They had a vehicle for everyone, it felt like.
Yeah.
But now when you look at the global sales figures, it's a different story. They're not sitting on top like they used to be.
Right.
So what happened? What's behind this shift?
Mm.
In this deep dive, we're going to explore how an automotive giant like Volkswagen, who just a few years ago seemed completely untouchable,
Yeah.
is now facing uh, a very different reality.
Yeah. It's a really interesting story when you think about how even these seemingly, invincible market positions can be completely upended. And
Yeah.
Volkswagen, along with, the whole German auto industry, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Porsche. I mean, they built an incredible legacy.
Yeah,
These were the cars, for generations that really stood for quality, performance, just that special feeling you got behind the wheel. They were aspirational, straight up.
totally. That
Yeah.
that German premium wasn't just like some marketing ploy.
Yeah.
It was a genuine perception of top-notch engineering. You
Yep.
bought a German car expecting it to be meticulously designed to be over-engineered,
Yeah.
to last forever.
Yeah.
And for decades, they absolutely delivered on that promise.
Right.
And a big part of that was their mastery of the internal combustion engine.
Right.
That was their foundation.
Yeah. They didn't just build combustion engines. They perfected them, like
Wow.
it was an art form.
It really was.
And, this dedication to mechanical engineering, to getting it absolutely right, it set a global standard.
Totally.
If you wanted the best driving experience, the most sophisticated engineering,
Yep.
you went with a German brand almost without question.
It was the default, right?
Yeah.
But then the whole game changed,
Yeah.
right? Electric vehicles started to emerge. Tesla comes along and really shakes things up.
Yeah.
And suddenly, that mastery of the internal combustion engine, it wasn't the be-all and end-all anymore,
Right.
right? The focus shifted to a whole new set of technologies.
Yeah.
Batteries, electric motors, software to run it all.
This was a huge disruption.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about it, the core DNA of these companies, right?
Right.
For decades, their innovation cycles, it was all about mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
Years and years of just meticulous refinement.
Yeah.
And software.
Yeah.
Software moves so much faster.
Wow.
It's iterative. It needs a different kind of mindset, a different kind of talent,
Yeah.
And that fundamental mismatch, I think that's a big part of why they struggled initially.
Yeah.
The very essence of what a car was, it was being redefined.
Totally. And it wasn't just about what was under the hood anymore.
Right.
Modern cars, especially these new EVs, they're being defined more and more by their software. The infotainment systems, the connectivity, the driver assistance features.
Yeah.
They're becoming like tech
Yeah.
products on wheels.
It's like your smartphone, right? The value isn't just in the hardware itself. It's how well the hardware and software work together.
Yeah.
Modern EVs, they're on that same path.
Right.
The user experience, it all comes down to how intuitive the software is, how responsive it is.
And this is where it seems like the traditional German manufacturers, Volkswagen included, they really stumbled out of the gate.
Yeah.
There was this perception, and it's pretty widespread, that their early EV offerings just weren't there when it came to the software. You'd read review after review, and they'd say, okay, the car is fine, but the infotainment system is slow, it's clunky, it's not nearly as user-friendly as what you get from Tesla
Yeah.
or even some of the newer brands.
Right.
And it's almost like, how could companies with this amazing legacy of engineering, how could they miss the mark so badly on something like infotainment?
It really does make you wonder. I think it comes down to, a fundamental difference in approach and expertise.
Okay.
For decades, their strength was in that hardware, in the physical engineering. Software development, it's a different beast entirely.
Yeah.
You need different skills, different development cycles, even a different way of thinking about the product life cycle.
Yeah.
These companies were used to spending years refining every little detail of a mechanical component.
Right.
Software needs to be agile. It needs to be updated constantly. It's a completely different rhythm.
Yeah. You can see how that would put them at a disadvantage, especially when they're trying to win over these younger, tech-savvy buyers.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are consumers who've grown up with seamless digital experiences.
Mhm.
They expect that same level of polish in their cars.
Yeah.
And I think underestimating the importance of that smooth tech integration,
Yeah.
that's a big part of why the German giants found themselves on the back foot.
It's a classic example of how even the most successful companies can get blindsided.
Totally.
While they were focused on perfecting their hardware for decades, a whole new generation of consumers came along who prioritized that seamless digital interaction. And that oversight, it created an opening for competitors who understood just how important software was becoming in the automotive experience.
And it wasn't just about existing competitors, right?
Right.
This shift also opened the door for a wave of entirely new players to enter the market.
Right.
Most notably, the Chinese EV manufacturers,
Yeah.
companies like BYD, NIO, XPeng, Zeekr. I mean, they have made a huge impact on the global auto scene.
Huge. And in such a short amount of time, too.
Right. It's incredible.
They've had this incredible surge, driven by strong government support for EVs in China, a massive domestic market to tap into.
Yeah.
And they've been able to innovate and scale at an amazing pace.
And it's not just about making cheaper cars, right?
No, not at all. It's a completely different innovation trajectory.
Right.
They're not weighed down by, decades of infrastructure built for combustion engines.
Right.
They're laser focused on that digital user experience from the get-go. And that allows them to be so agile to respond to consumer tech trends in a way that, frankly, traditional players are still trying to figure out.
It's like they're playing a different game almost.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just about the number of cars they're producing, right?
Right.
They're pushing the boundaries in key areas, particularly battery technology.
Absolutely.
They're making advancements in energy density, which means longer ranges.
Yeah.
And crucially, they're nailing the software integration.
Yeah, they're offering these feature-rich EVs, big screens, sophisticated AI assistants, the whole 9 yards, and often at really competitive prices.
And that brings up a really interesting point, right?
Yeah.
That long-standing assumption, that almost automatic association of superiority with German premium,
Yeah.
it's starting to lose its grip.
It seems like it.
Buyers, especially in China, but increasingly in other markets too, they're seriously considering these new brands.
Yeah.
The badge on the hood just isn't enough anymore. If the technology isn't there, if the price isn't right,
Yeah.
it's a huge shift in consumer psychology and in the market.
It really is. This erosion of brand loyalty based solely on heritage, it's a major challenge for these companies.
It is.
German premium used to carry so much weight.
Yeah.
Now consumers are saying, okay, if there's a compelling alternative, if it offers me better value, more advanced tech, I'm open to it.
Right.
And that increased competition, it's a game changer.
And on top of all these technological shifts and the rise of these new competitors, there are some pretty fundamental economic realities at play too, right?
Sure.
Things like the higher costs associated with manufacturing in Germany.
Yeah, that cost structure in Germany is a real hurdle.
Right, yeah.
Higher labor costs. And those often come with a highly skilled workforce, which is great.
Yeah.
But it makes it tough to compete on price alone against manufacturers in regions with lower overheads.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental challenge for established industrial nations.
It is. And then there's the sheer scale and complexity of a company like Volkswagen.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are massive organizations with these incredibly intricate supply chains that were built and optimized over decades for producing combustion engine vehicles.
Right.
And trying to retool those networks to switch to EVs, to batteries and electric motors and all this specialized electronics.
Yeah.
It's a monumental task, logistically and financially.
Yeah, it's like trying to turn a giant oil tanker.
That's a great analogy.
It's a slow, deliberate process, and meanwhile, you've got these newer, more agile companies. They're like speedboats.
Yeah.
They can adapt to the changing currents of the market so much faster. The established giants, they have a lot of inertia to overcome.
They do. It's a real uphill battle in a lot of ways. So given all these headwinds, what have Volkswagen and the other German manufacturers been doing?
Well, they're not just sitting on their hands, that's for sure. They know how serious this challenge is, and they're making some big moves. Huge investments in R&D for new electric vehicles. They're clearly committed to electrifying their entire lineups.
And they're also working to address those software issues.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just build an electric car anymore.
Right.
The whole user experience, that's driven by software. It has to be competitive.
Right.
So they're investing heavily in software talent, forming partnerships with tech companies, trying to create these more intuitive, more up-to-date digital ecosystems inside their vehicles.
Yeah.
This is where they really need to show some fast progress.
Totally. And we're also seeing them pursue collaborations to get access to new technologies more quickly, right? And they're trying to streamline operations, cut costs, be more competitive on price,
Yeah.
and they're strategically expanding into new, rapidly growing markets.
All necessary steps if they want to survive and thrive in this new landscape. They're trying to leverage their existing strengths, that brand recognition, the reputation for solid engineering. But at the same time, they're trying to adapt to these new demands of the market. The question is, can they transform quickly enough, effectively enough, to regain that dominant position they once held?
It really does feel like they're in this race against time,
Yeah.
trying to reinvent themselves as these software-driven tech companies,
Yeah.
all while facing intense pressure from companies that were born in the electric and digital age.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a tough spot to be in.
it is. The future is very uncertain. Can they successfully blend their heritage with the software expertise they need to lead again?
That's the million-dollar question. Can these traditional automotive giants, with their established cultures and ways of doing things, can they actually become these agile, fast-moving tech companies?
Right.
It's a huge undertaking, and the outcome is going to have a massive impact, not just on the auto industry, but on how we think about personal transportation as a whole.
Absolutely. So just to recap quickly, Volkswagen's fall from the top. It's the result of a whole bunch of factors converging at once.
Yeah.
The switch to electric vehicles, their initial struggles with software,
Yeah.
the rise of these super innovative and cost-effective Chinese manufacturers,
Right.
the economic realities of producing in Germany, the challenges of transforming these huge established organizations.
It's a perfect storm, in a way.
Yeah, it really is.
These interconnected forces, they've reshaped the automotive landscape completely.
Totally.
It's way more dynamic, way more competitive.
Yeah.
And those old advantages, they don't guarantee success anymore.
They don't. So here's a final thought for you to consider. Can these traditional automotive powerhouses, not just Volkswagen,
Right.
can they navigate this massive transformation and get back on top? Or are we witnessing a permanent shift with these new players changing the balance of power for good?
Yeah.
It really gets you thinking about how technology, global competition, consumer preferences,
Yeah.
how they all come together to shape the world around us.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.